I was told we couldn't afford a new car. Then I saw my cousin's brand new sports car. I didn't say a word, but a month later, their garage was empty. Growing up in a modest family, I was always told that things like vacations, new cars, and luxury items were beyond our reach. My parents worked hard, but it always felt like we just barely got by. They'd tell me that the house was our priority, that we needed to focus on saving for the future, and that material things were secondary. I never really minded, to be honest. I wasn't exactly materialistic, and I understood that money was tight. But I always had this underlying feeling that something wasn't quite right about the whole situation, that my parents weren't bad people. They were loving, supportive, and did the best they could. But there was always an odd imbalance in how money seemed to flow. My mother would often tell me that taking vacations or buying new things was a luxury that we just couldn't afford. I never pressed the issue, but as the years went by, I started to notice that certain people in our family didn't seem to share the same "we can't afford it" mindset. It started with my cousin Tyler. He was about 4 years older than me, and we had always been fairly close. Tyler came from a different branch of the family, one that wasn't quite as frugal. He had a good job in a tech company, but there was always something about his lifestyle that never sat well with me. I remember a couple of years ago, he had been talking about getting a new car. He mentioned it offhandedly at a family barbecue, and my parents nodded in approval, but I could see the discomfort on their faces. It was clear they thought of it as a waste of money. "Do you really need a new car, Tyler?" my mom had asked, her voice laced with genuine concern. But Tyler just grinned, shrugged, and said, "I've worked hard for it. It's time for a little upgrade." At the time, I didn't think much of it, but a few weeks later, I got a message from him. He'd gotten the car, an all-black, sleek Audi R8. It was the kind of car you'd see in movies. He sent me a photo of it parked in his driveway, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. I didn't want to feel that way, but it was hard not to. I remember sitting on the couch with my mom and dad a few days after that, scrolling through social media. Tyler posted a picture of himself with the Audi, and I saw my mother's reaction. She didn't say anything, but the look on her face said it all. A combination of awe and resignation, as if she knew that kind of luxury would never be a part of our lives. "Must be nice," my dad muttered under his breath. Shaking his head, I didn't say anything. I simply nodded and kept scrolling, feeling that familiar sense of resignation. The truth was, my parents had always told me that material things weren't what mattered. But deep down, I had always wondered why it seemed like other people could afford the things they wanted while we had to struggle just to get by. As the months passed, I continued to drive the same old car I'd had since I got my license, one that was held together with duct tape, prayers, and sheer willpower. I knew I'd eventually need a new car, but the thought of asking my parents for help seemed impossible. They'd already made it clear that we just didn't have the resources for such luxuries. Then came the family reunion. It had been a while since we'd all gathered, and it was one of those rare occasions where everyone showed up. My cousin Tyler was there, as expected, and when I walked into the backyard, I couldn't help but notice him sitting beside his Audi, talking to a few other relatives. The car gleamed in the sunlight, almost as if it were a status symbol, a sign of success and financial freedom. I wanted to avoid it, but of course, I couldn't. Tyler called me over, a wide grin plastered across his face. "Hey, check it out. What do you think of the new ride?" he asked, clearly expecting a compliment. I smiled politely. "It's great, Tyler. Really impressive." But as I stood there, looking at the car and then glancing back at my parents, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. They had always made excuses for not being able to provide the same things: vacations, new cars, luxuries of any kind. And here I was, looking at someone who was related to me, someone I cared about, who seemed to have it all. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded, made small talk, and eventually excused myself to get a drink. A week later, something strange happened. Tyler posted a picture on social media, this time not of the Audi, but of him and his wife, standing in front of a brand new house. It wasn't just any house, it was massive. It had an infinity pool, a huge backyard, and floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of house you see in magazine spreads, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about success. I saw it before my parents did. My mom walked into the living room, and I could tell she had just seen the post too. She didn't say anything immediately, but I could feel the tension in the air. A few minutes later, she turned to me and asked, "Do you think we made a mistake? Should we have done more for you?" I was taken aback. "What do you mean? Tyler's doing so well, and it makes me wonder. Maybe we should have pushed you more. Maybe we should have let you dream bigger. Encouraged you to pursue more than just being practical all the time." I sat there stunned. It was as if a switch had flipped. My parents, who had always been the embodiment of practicality, suddenly questioned everything they had stood for. For a moment, I felt bad for them. They had spent their lives worrying about money and teaching me to be responsible with it, but here they were, looking at someone else's success and wondering if they had done the right thing by teaching me to be cautious and frugal. The weeks that followed were strange. Tyler didn't post about his car or house much anymore. In fact, he started sharing more cryptic updates, ones that hinted at struggles with his business, financial setbacks, and other personal issues. It didn't seem like things were going as smoothly as they had been portrayed. One day, I drove past Tyler's house, and to my surprise, the Audi was gone. There was a moving truck in the driveway. I hadn't heard anything about him moving, so I stopped by to ask if everything was okay. When he opened the door, his smile was gone. It wasn't the same confident grin he had when he showed me the Audi or the new house. He looked tired, worn out even. "We're selling the house," he said quietly. "The business. It's not going the way I thought it would. I might have overextended myself." I tried to be supportive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen this coming. He had been so eager to show off, to flaunt his success, but now it seemed like the weight of it all was crushing him. A few weeks later, I saw him again at another family gathering. This time, there was no car, no house. He looked different, more humble, perhaps more aware of how fragile everything really was. My parents didn't say anything about it, but I noticed how they exchanged knowing glances. They never mentioned it, but I could tell they had learned something from Tyler's experience. A month later, the garage that used to house the Audi was empty. The sports car had been sold, and the house was on the market. Tyler had taken a massive financial hit, and his once glittering lifestyle had crumbled in the end. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. My parents didn't either. But there was something in the air that changed after that. The lesson was clear. Success isn't always as it appears, and sometimes it's better to be content with what you have than to chase an image of perfection that might not even be real. Tyler had it all, or so it seemed. But as the months passed, it became clear that the things he valued, status, wealth, and appearance, were no longer bringing him happiness. I think that's when my parents realized that maybe their way wasn't so wrong after all. And for me, it was a lesson I would carry with me forever.